Hey, y'all. Did y'all miss us? Because we sure missed you. Look, watch, like, and subscribe to our channel at Sister Sis 1988, as well as follow us on all our social media platforms at Sister Sis 1988. We're coming back for our second episode with Miss Angie Billen. And again, I'm Jamie.
I'm Latoya.
And I'm Calandra.
Okay, and we're going to dive right back in. And Miss Angie, I do want to thank you for your information and your passion for wanting to basically rebuild women's courage and their strength and getting their life back on track after such a traumatic experience, whether it's been in their childhood or in their relationships as an adult woman. So my question is going to be, what role does self-compassion play in trauma recovery? And how can women start practicing it?
Yeah, self-compassion is so important in trauma recovery because we're not usually used to being kind to ourselves, right? And when you're in a traumatic or an abusive relationship, your self-worth is like diminished, right? So it's important to rebuild that self-compassion. And how do we do that? Like, that's something that I do with my clients. You have to really help them create a positive self-image and align with that image, right? Because often, yeah, we can create affirmations, but you have to believe it as well. So I do a lot of mirror work, and that's looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself, I am a beautiful woman. I am a
Yeah,
just woman.
yeah,
It's through journaling. It's through starting each day with gratitude and telling yourself, maybe today wasn't a great day, but I'm going to reset and I'm going to restart. Like, really having that compassion for yourself. And again, we do different exercises in our work, such as visualizations, meditations, really doing some deep breath work so that your mind, body, soul is connected and regulated. And then you start really aligning with those affirmations because that they are true, right? All these things, these negative thoughts or behaviors that have been ingrained in our mind, we
mhm,
have to rewire them and it takes time. And that's why the self-compassion is so important in trauma work because it's rebuilding yourself.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Could you explain what core programming is and how it influences our lives?
Yeah, so core programming is super important. Once we recognize our core program, we really start to know and understand ourselves. So what is core programming? It's the foundation of how we respond to life and how we operate. It's created from our past experiences, our upbringing. It's like a programming that's always running like a loop in our mind until we interrupt it intentionally and change it. So
Mm-hmm.
that starts with self-reflection, identifying reoccurring patterns in our lives. For example, you might question yourself, like the partners that we choose. How do we react to stress? You might look at childhood experiences and limiting beliefs and see how they're playing in your current life. And like people often say, like, why is it important for me to do this? Like to understand my core programming. Because once you recognize your limiting beliefs, your triggers, your patterns, then you can start the work of rewiring and breaking these patterns. Our core programming is created by past experiences. So things like societal norms, your upbringing, your ethnical background, your parents' marriage, your childhood, all of these things, they shape the patterns and the way we show up for ourselves in our lives. The core programming also shapes the thoughts that we have about ourselves. So things like, what's your relationship to money? What do you think of money? What's your relationship to sex and intimacy? So all of these things connect to our core programming and essentially connect to our self-worth and what we think about ourselves and our own beliefs. So when I say that core programming is also connected to our triggers, what I mean is the triggers that impact us negatively.
Mm-hmm.
So these triggers that cause us to take part in acts such as self-betrayal, addictions, obsessive eating, overworking, overspending, all those things. And I think like if you don't understand your core programming, it's impossible to change your reality and how you show up in life. It's a foundational step for transformation.
Okay. How do you help somebody that is having a challenge with maybe like identifying with what their core programming is?
Yeah, so it's really important to start looking at some of the patterns in your life, okay? So whether it be, for example, like, are you attracting toxic partners in your life over and over? Like I mentioned before, how do you react to stress? Like, are you constantly, acting from a place of anger, resentment? So really looking at all these patterns and things that are showing up in your life, and then being conscious about interrupting this pattern and changing it. And it's not easy because like if you've been doing something for like decades and decades, it's hard to rewire, but we can do it. It takes a lot of work. It takes focus, it takes time, and it takes grace, giving yourself that patience, but you can interrupt these patterns. And something to remember is like, subconscious behaviors run 90 to 95% of our mind, and the conscious is only 5 to 10%. So what that means is your subconscious is driven by underlying habits, right? Your habits, your instincts, automatic processes, versus the conscious behaviors are only 5 to 10% of our actions and decisions where we are aware of intentionally controlling these behaviors. So when we are ready, like we're self-aware of what we want to change and we're ready to make that change, we know that your core programming, you can start to interrupt those behaviors rather than staying stuck in that loop. Like picture it like a movie that's always running. Like we want to interrupt that behavior now and we want to rewire it and change it. So, for me, for example, like my core programming told me that marriage is forever. And if you
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and if your marriage doesn't last, you're a failure.
Okay.
So
Mm.
that was like deep, deep, deep ingrained in me, right? So I
Mm,
stayed in that marriage for far too long because
mm,
I was so embarrassed to be a failure. Like I didn't want my family, my community, my kids and whoever else like to think that I'm a failure.
mm,
So I had to intentionally interrupt that behavior or that core programming, right? And eventually I was able to. And
Mhm.
now I've replaced it with more positive affirmations, right? Like, I am courageous, I am safe, I am an independent, beautiful woman. And when you start really believing and aligning with these new core programming thoughts that are in your mind, then that's when life will flow, right? Otherwise, all we're doing with the negative core programming that's already been ingrained in us is we're attracting chaos into our life and pain and suffering. So, it's again about being aware of what your core programming is and then being ready to work on it. And that's something that we do in my program and like, one-on-one life coaching.
So of course, you just kind of tapped on that a little bit on my next question. But what would you say like it would be the first step that someone would take when they need to work on to try to identify and reshape what their core programming is?
Yeah, so I mean, it's gonna take a lot of work, but again, it's gonna be one, being able to trust who you're working with, right? Like because you're going to be talking about a lot of vulnerable stuff, sensitive things that are traumatic things. So really working with someone that you trust, but then being open to being self-aware of some of the patterns that have showed up for you. And often women will say like, my belief is that I can't break up the family. I can't leave because of the kids. I don't have access to my finances. Like, what am I supposed to do? So we break it down. We kind of dissect each problem or each challenge and work on each one. And the limiting beliefs are a huge part of the core programming, right? Like we have to ask ourselves, what are my limiting beliefs and where did this come from? For example, for me in my culture, like divorce is considered a stigma, right? So it's a shame. So a lot of women, including myself, like I would rather stay in that marriage than deal with all the shame that's going to come after,
mm,
right? But it's really overcoming that belief because that's not the case. And whose belief are you holding on to? Is it your families and your cultures or is it your own? So I think it's important to break down what the belief is that's really driving this core programming in your current life. And then we start working on letting go of these beliefs, like almost like peeling an onion, right? We're letting go layer by layer of each challenging belief that you have ingrained in you.
Okay. Okay. Well, speaking on belief, what are some of the most common types of limiting beliefs that you think people struggle with the most?
I would say the limiting beliefs that come up a lot for women that I work with are I'm not gonna be okay alone. What do I do without my partner? How am I gonna survive as a single mother? And how will the world see me as a single mom? So there's a lot of those related to confidence and insecurities about being alone. And again, that stigma, that shame of being on your own, I guess, or being divorced or separated or whatever the case might be. Some of the other beliefs are just related to feeling unworthy, feeling not valued, feeling like you're not a priority. So again, those are things that we would work on is really restructuring and rephrasing these beliefs. and creating positive beliefs for you now. And then some of the other beliefs are things like, and I'm trying to think back to what I went through, like just I can't tear up my family, like, feeling a lot of guilt and shame and pressure around that, like not not being able to give my children a two-parent home or like a normal family, right? So a lot of these beliefs are things that a lot of my clients go through. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Well, Miss Angie, we do appreciate you, like I say, and Women with Your Compassion for that specific trauma for women, because it is. You're right. We do limit ourselves when we're married or we have children. We put ourselves last. So we do appreciate the work that you're providing. So if any of our audience want to contact you, possibly become a client, what would they do? How would they contact you?
Yeah, so I will obviously share all my social media information. I do one-on-one coaching. I also do corporate coaching with groups of women. Currently, if you want to do that deeper work, definitely reach out and we can talk about creating a structured program for you that's going to work for you. I think every woman's journey is individual and it's unique, right? Because we all go through our own journeys, we all go through our own traumatic life events. So I really like to cater my programs and my coaching to each individual woman. But yeah, I'm in the process of creating a masterclass, and it's going to be followed by an 8-week workshop or training program that will be available in the new year. So if you want more information on that and you're ready to do that deeper work, definitely, just follow me on social media and the information will be posted at some point there.
Okay, and just say, what is your social media? What is the social media platform?
Yes. So my social media handle is Angie Biln. That's on Instagram. So it's ANGIEBILN. That's for that's for Instagram, that's for LinkedIn, that's for TikTok, that's for YouTube. My website is angiebiln.ca.
Okay. Well, we do appreciate your time, Miss Angie. So
Thank you
Until
so much
next
for
time.
having me. Thank
there's
you.
strength in sisterhood.
And support in sisterhood.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.